Hi, everyone. I'm Tamron Hall, the News Nation. It's following breaking news this hour in the Trayvon Martin case. A judge has decided George Zimmerman can go free for now if he posts $150,000 bail. This after Zimmerman made a surprise apology to Trayvon Martin's family when he took the stand in an effort to be released from jail as he awaits trial.
I wanted to say I am sorry for the loss of your son. I did not know how old he was. I thought he was a little bit younger than I am, and I did not know if he was armed or not.
Martin's family, who were present in court, have called the apology insincere and disingenuous. The prosecutor also peppered George Zimmerman with questions about whether he apologized for the killing before today.
I don't remember what I said. I believe I did say that.
You told that to the police?
In one of the statements, I said that I felt sorry for the family.
You did?
Yes, sir.
Why did you wait 50-something days to tell them, that is the parents?
I don't understand the question, I'm sorry.
Why did you wait so long to tell Mr. Martin and the victim's mother, the father and mother, why did you wait so long to tell them?
I was told not to communicate with them.
NBC's Kerry Sanders was in the courtroom. He joins us from Sanford, Florida. So, Kerry, obviously, we'll talk about the details of the possibility he'll be released on bail, but many people were wondering why the apology was a central part of this hearing. What was the relevance of that?
I think it was primarily because of the cameras that were in the courtroom. Showing some contrition, I guess, might sway a judge to a little bit of extent, but that's not really what was going on in that courtroom. The judge was deciding whether George Zimmerman, for the next year perhaps, should remain in a jail cell while this case is moving forward to trial, or whether he should be allowed out. Of course, his defense attorney wants him out and was successful in getting him released, although not immediately, getting him released so that he can better prepare for his defense. And the reason he's not getting out immediately here is because they have to work out some logistics. Specifically, he will have an ankle monitor on, and that will provide a GPS signal so that law enforcement, not only the Sheriff's Department here in Seminole County, but also the Florida Department of Law Enforcement, can keep track of him. But one of the things that the defense has requested is for the ability for George Zimmerman to leave the state, to leave Florida. And so they're making sure that this technology works properly and also can't be hacked from somebody on the outside who perhaps wants to find out where George Zimmerman is going to go into what effectively will be hiding. Cameron?
And Kerry, Shelley Zimmerman, George Zimmerman's wife, testified by phone. What did she say?
Well, you know, George Zimmerman's family testified by phone, not only his wife, but his father and his mother. The reason they did that is because they have not shown their faces, and while their identities are known, they wanted to protect some of their privacy. So they were sworn in and testified by phone. The primary things that they were talking about were, number one, his risk of flight, and whether if he ran, would they know that they are obligated to call the authorities. All said yes. And they were talking about whether he had a propensity for violence or not. He has been arrested before with battery on a police officer, as well as a restraining order against him. His family tells a different story of what happened. That he did not know it was battery against a police officer when it happened. Rather, it was somebody in civilian clothes, and that ultimately, while he may have been charged with that, there was a lesser charge ultimately pled to, and he went into what's known as a diversion program, so he was not convicted of that felony. Nonetheless, the prosecution made a strong case here that they felt there should be no bond, and if there would be a bond, it should be at $1 million. The judge saw it otherwise and set a $150,000 bond.
Okay, Kerry Sanders live for us in Sanford. Thank you. Now let me bring in Kendall Coffey. He's a former U.S. attorney for the state of Florida, along with Joanne Reed, managing editor of thegrio.com. Let me start off with Kendall here. The attorneys representing Zimmerman wanted a $15,000 bond. It's $150,000. Does that sound right to you, Kendall?
Well, I didn't think $150,000 was unreasonable. Remember, a bond is not supposed to measure the value of human life or even the dimensions of a crime.
Right.
It's like a security deposit. What is the amount to assure that George Zimmerman will be there? And frankly, from what we heard about his dire financial circumstances, I don't think it's going to be easy to come up with $150,000. And there's this myth out there that all the defendant or his family need to do is come up with 10%. Not so. To get a bond issued by a bail bondsman, you almost always have have to be able to fully collateralize $150,000. So under the circumstances, I thought it was a reasonable number.
Kendall, another moment in court today. Robert Zimmerman, that is George Zimmerman's father, talked about injuries. Before I show this photograph that was shown on another network, I want to play this moment in court where this picture that is now online, that was now published, was referenced. Let me play what happened in court first.
He had a protective cover over his nose. His lip was swollen and cut. And there were two vertical gashes on the back of his head.
Have you seen any pictures of that?
I did not take any pictures.
Have you seen any of them?
Yes, I have.
Who showed them to you?
I saw one on the news today.
So the picture he's referring to, we have it here. It is a graphic photograph showing blood, the top of George Zimmerman's head. Kendall, again, this is what's coming out now. You have people debating whether or not this looks like an injury that would be life-threatening, which is what George Zimmerman intended or said to the police when he said it was self-defense here. But how does this play a role in what's happening now?
Well, it's going to be pretty clear at some point that George Zimmerman overhyped his allegations in his self-defense claim. But for now, what we would have to say is there were clearly some injuries, and the investigator, and I thought this was very significant, acknowledged to the defense lawyer that Zimmerman's injuries were consistent with somebody whose head was being banged against a concrete. The defense lawyer also got him to say that he couldn't tell who attacked who first. So even apart from the important victory of getting Bond, the defense lawyer scored some points today.
Okay, let me bring in Joyanne Reed, because it was late last night, Joyanne, that I saw the attorney representing Trayvon Martin's family talk about this offer, that it came out of nowhere, that George Zimmerman wanted to meet with them.
Right, and we've had, you have to remember that this wasn't the first time George Zimmerman spoke. We heard him in court.
Right.
He also spoke through his website.
Well, he said one or two words, obviously, when he was in for the initial arraignment.
Exactly, but he also spoke up for himself on his own website, which was released a couple of weeks ago. And so there was an opportunity, if he wanted to express sorrow for the loss of the Trayvon Martin parents, you know, for their loss, he could have done so there. So when I spoke with Ben Crump, one of the attorneys, he made that point. Why was there no apology on the website? Why was there no expression of contrition when he left that voicemail for his friend and neighbor, Frank Taffy? Then in all the other public pronouncements you've heard from his father, from his brother, and from him, you've never heard this idea of contrition. So to them, it strikes them as self-serving.
Now, I heard the attorney also say that Trayvon Martin's mother is a Christian, and there may come a time where she would meet with George Zimmerman, but this is not the time.
Absolutely. And you know, when you speak with Sabrina Fulton, she couches everything in her Christian faith, and she definitely has tried to have her faith bolster her at this time. So yes, Ben Crump said that maybe, you know, in the future, but right now they feel like what they want is justice for their son.
Let me go back to Kendall, because a lot of this, as you know, Kendall, far better than I could ever articulate, it's being one of the top lawyers in Florida. A lot of this is about strategy. What do you make of, you know, before this hearing today, there's word that George Zimmerman wants to meet with Trayvon Martin's family.
I thought all of that was frankly ill-advised, and O'Mara's doing a very good job, but it didn't play well. Fortunately for him, the judge kept a very narrow leash on the prosecutor, didn't allow him to cross-examine George Zimmerman very much. But I thought, unless this was something George Zimmerman ordered his lawyer to allow him to do, it wasn't the best idea so far for the defense.
Why isn't it the best idea?
Because you take a chance in the sense that you could expose your client to being asked a lot of different questions about, well, why are you saying that you thought he was a certain age, or why are you apologizing now, and aren't you really apologizing because you killed the guy and you knew you were killing him and you knew you were committing a crime? So it creates that kind of risk factor. At the same time, frankly, it came off as kind of lame, and I don't think it accomplished anything in the court of public opinion while creating some risk. Didn't blow up today, but creating some risk in the court of law.
And Joanne, what was the reaction from Trayvon Martin's family after the judge said $150,000 bond?
Well, you saw the family left the courtroom very quickly after the hearing, and so far I think there is disappointment. The parents did hope that he would remain in jail pending trial, but I do think that throughout this process, they've just wanted there to be a process. So on the one hand, they're disappointed, but they're glad that at least least the judicial process is going forward.
And Kendall, from what we witnessed and heard today, is there anything that you believe hurts the prosecution moving ahead? I know a lot of attorneys were on Twitter and sending out their opinions on this, saying that, at least from their perspective, what we heard today, and I'm not sure what they were referencing, points out to not second-degree murder but manslaughter. Do you agree with any of this?
Well, in the sense of what we heard today, and I mentioned a moment ago that gap where the investigator's saying he doesn't know who attacked who first. That is a critical issue that they're going to have to fix in some fashion. But let's be very clear. The prosecution made it plain. They were holding back on their best evidence. That was a strategy call they made to oppose this, to respect the family of Trayvon Martin's wishes that they oppose getting out on bail. But they're holding their best evidence back because they know there's going to be a very big fight when Trayvon Martin's defense lawyers want a stand-your-ground hearing in the state of Florida that allows you to try to get the whole case thrown out. So they're keeping their powder dry for the big fight.
All right, Kendall Coffey, Joyanne Reed, thank you both. Greatly appreciate it.